you're going to be a ground fighter and you can't take the fight to the ground, I've always said it's like being a pilot that can't take a plane off. Like you can fly beautifully in the air, but you can't take it off the tarmac.
Yeah, you can't land it. You can't land the plane and you can't get it off the ground, but you're really good once you're floating. That kind of sums up about 90% of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I hate to say it. I mean, I don't want to give it such a high number, but it's really that big. I mean, I know schools where the instructors don't know shit as far as takedowns. They actually have to ask like a white belt student that's a D1 wrestler, like, hey bro, can you teach a double leg? Because they don't know how, which is fucking wild, right? Or they got to like start a judo program or bring somebody in because they don't physically know how to do a single throw or trip. That part really kind of makes us look silly and stupid.
Welcome back to the BJJ Fanatics podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Ford. My guest today is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's also a black belt in Judo. He's an American national champion, a two-time Masters No-Gi world champion, a Masters Pan Am's champion. As a brown belt, he was also an American nationals champion and a No-Gi world silver medalist. He was also a Pan Am's champion as a brown belt. He's a veteran of ADCC, and outside of Jiu-Jitsu, he's a legend in the world of surfing. He went pro as a surfer at only 14 years old and became the youngest champion at 15 years old. He's a 3-time World Surf League champion and an 8-time Surfing US Open champion. And on top of that, he's a 5-time US Surfing champion. He's also a very successful entrepreneur and has his own brand of surfboards and his own jiu-jitsu academy called Surf Fight in Del Mar, California. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to be joined today for the second time on the show by my friend Joel Tudor. How are you today, Joel?
Good, Ryan. Good to chat with you. Thanks for having me.
Of course, it's great to have you back, man. I had such a great time talking with you last time, so I'm stoked to catch up with you. It's been a little over a year, I think. So, man, what have you been up to in the last year?
I'm just kind of around helping Majid. He's been competing a ton. And between running the school, I have a surfboard factory too. Then just day-to-day dad activities. I'm pretty busy for the most part, right? Having a school is especially when it's just you and one other person, is not a lot of work, but you're there a lot. I think people kind of underestimate, for Majid and I, we don't have people that clean or that kind of stuff. It's kind of our job. I think majority of schools are in that situation unless you have someone kind of backing your program. So, I mean, just the laundry and the cleaning the school and picking up my kid and doing all the day-to-day stuff. I'm pretty busy in a good way. I'm no complaints. I actually really enjoy the opportunity. It's not, I don't call it a job. It's the opportunity to be able to teach jiu-jitsu and make a living from it is a blessing. And if you can do it and your school's pulling it, man, that's like a success within itself. So, pretty stoked. It's been wild watching Majid because he's got all these tournaments in between the trials the last couple of years. And then he's got CGI coming up. He was going to do ADCC. It's been a pretty wild couple months.
That's awesome, man. Well, man, Surf Fight is one of the places that's on my traveling jiu-jitsu destinations list for sure. You guys have such a cool looking academy. It's a very unique vibe that you guys have with the surfboards and the culture that you guys have in the gym. It really is like I encourage anyone traveling through Del Mar or Southern California to drop in because it's a very unique environment. What have been some of the biggest challenges of school ownership so far, Joel?
We were talking about this the other day. I think what people don't understand is if you're doing it on your own, and you don't have family money or you don't have someone backing it, got to remember it's going to take like 5 months, maybe longer for you to get enough students to actually break even. So you kind of have to have that surplus of cash to be able to make the school survive. Majid and I brought in a third party, my partner in the surfboard factory, and he helped us, keep the doors open in the beginning because you got to remember your electric, your water, your rent. It's a lot. I don't care where you go. I mean, anywhere, because you're going to need a certain amount of space. Our school was an art gallery prior to us getting in there. And then you got to do your build out, right, which isn't cheap. Construction nowadays is not cheap at all. And even for me, my family's in construction, so we were able to, cut corners and use friends to do stuff. But still, it's still costly. You got to order your mats. You got to do all these things that I think people kind of underestimate exactly how much that costs all total. And then you got to pay it back. Whoever loans that to you isn't going to just give it to you. I mean, maybe if they've got a ton of money, they might, or if your family's got a ton of money and they can afford to pay for that kind of stuff. But for the most part, anybody that dishes out that kind of cash for you to have a beginning is going to want it back. And when they want it back, they're going to take a percentage on top. Not so much what the bank's going to take, but they're going to pay themselves back and they're going to make a little bit on it. Nobody's going to give you money for free. We're coming up on 5 years. God, it's crazy how fast it went. Next year will be 5 years. We're doing good. We're not killing it, but we're doing good. It pays for itself. We make money off of it. It pays Majid's rent. I make a little bit off of it. So it's a success for us. Obviously, we could build it up and grow more, but we're kind of at a point now where if we get to a few more students, we can almost kind of cut it off until people drop out because we're not that big of a space, so we can't really facilitate having hundreds of students. And we really don't need it, to be honest with you. That's a lot of work, man. I can't remember that many people's names. Um, and I don't ever want to get to a point where we have to write your name on a gi because that's just so unpersonal, and you're like a piece of meat at that point. You're just like cattle, like coming through the doors, and you're like, "Hi, I'm Joel." You're Simon. So we kind of pride ourselves in not having to do that. Um, Obviously, through ADCC being so popular in the last couple of years, our gym's kind of half-half. We have half gi days, half no gi. Actually, we probably have more no gi days just because it's so much more popular than the gi. Um, Culturally, it also doesn't involve all the like you have to kiss the instructor's ass to come in and train, or you got to bow to the guy, and all this. Which I'm all for tradition, but at the same time, that shit's a turnoff for a lot of people. Some people need it. Some people need organization in their life, and they like being told what to do. So that's all good. But I feel like with no-gi, it's a little more like wrestling. Um, you just kind of like your participation is enough rather than you having to kiss my ass and pull some like Japanese samurai stuff where you go, I got to keep bowing. And also, we kind of cater to a lot of like the working crowd. Most of the people that come to our classes, like our noon class is packed. You got to remember, people only get an hour for lunch. So they're not really going to be there necessarily when the class starts. They're probably going to show up about 30 minutes in and get their 30 minutes of exercise, and then they're going to grab their shit and leave. They're not going to have to like say, "Oh, is it okay if I leave, Sensei? Can I use the toilet? Can I?" We're all adults here. Uh, in my opinion, that shit's absolutely ridiculous. I don't really take it personal if you get up and leave and don't say goodbye. You got to get back to work. Your job's more important than kissing my ass. So or making me feel like I'm, like the almighty one, and you got to bow down to me. And I just that shit is played out, and I'm not a big fan of it. So we get a lot of guys who just kind of come in and get out of there, get it done, or guys that get off work at 5, make it for the night class, and they got to go home to their kids. They don't really have time for that shit, and I totally respect that. But not that we don't explain. We actually kind of get a kick out of when our students, we tell them to go train at other gyms. We're always just like, hey, go visit this academy, go down here, go see Barrett, go visit these different schools. And they get to kind of feel how strict most places are in comparison to our policies of running a gym. And then they come back kind of like, damn, I didn't realize it was that serious. And I'm like, yeah, it gets kind of serious sometimes. Uh, but yeah, we're pretty laid back. And like I was telling you, when most people come to the gym and they see how small our academy is, it's tiny. I came from a really small school. This is the era of super schools, right? Where everybody's got hot showers and all this other shit. And Majid and I always kind of joke. I'm like, man, my water bill a month is gnarly just at my house. And that's the thing with one person taking a shower a day. I cannot fathom if you have an academy and you got 60 to 100 people a day taking a hot shower, what your water bill is like insane. I always tell people, you want to take a shower? Put 2 hot water jugs in your car and rinse off outside. You know what I mean? Save me the water bill because I'm not here to make it a spa, and I'm trying to teach you how to fight. If you want all the amenities, go find a super school, and that's just kind of Carlson style. I mean, the gym I came from, it had a shitty ass little shower. I wouldn't step foot in that thing if you paid me, right? No one was cleaning it. I couldn't imagine the shit you could catch being in there barefoot. And I laughed because a lot of the Brazilian guys at the academy I came from used to carry a spray bottle of rubbing alcohol, and they would finish the training and then like spray themselves off to kill all the bacteria, and then towel off and go away. I mean, I go to the beach all the time, and I always pack a couple hot water jugs in my car to rinse off. I think jiu-jitsu culture, if that's really what you need, then just put it in your car. The water stays hot the whole time through your class, and you might as well look a little funny outside. We're already kind of funny wrestling around, weird outfits and shit. Why not keep a water jug in your car? Just rinse off afterwards. Not gonna hurt. You're gonna save my business a ton of money, and space wise too. I can't imagine the build out to have to put showers and all that shit. We have a toilet, and our bathroom's probably the most unique bathroom in the jiu-jitsu world. Most people that go in there are like, "Whoa, that was a cool experience." Just the way we decorated it and the shit that's in there is pretty cool.
One of the things I love about the jiu-jitsu world is just the broad spectrum in flavors that you can find in different places depending where you go. Like you have the very rigid, like very traditional type schools that where you bow in and bow out, and you have to wear your gi a certain way and all that. And then you have the complete opposite, which is what you're describing. I think it's just awesome that we have both sides and everything in between, depending where you go, and that's acceptable within our culture in jiu-jitsu. I think it's awesome.
And like I've done judo, and judo's really pretty strict with all the bowing. But yes and no. Like they don't take it over the top like some of the strict Brazilians do. And I've trained at a lot of judo schools. There's the bowing on and off the mat, but there's not that like. At least from what I experienced, there's no like, Sensei, can I get a glass of water? Can I use the toilet? Like, what the fuck? I never saw that at any of the judo schools I went to ever. I've seen that in jiu-jitsu, which is all recycled judo anyhow. At the end of the day, it came from judo. The guys that landed in Brazil that taught everybody, it was judo. All the self-defense shit that we do, it's all judo. If you go through like, the history of Kano's work, and I mean, it's literally move for move the exact same. You can rebrand it and say that it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but it's fucking judo, dude. I mean, any way you look at it, and that part of it is just kind of funny that the side that like learned it from the judo guys kind of took it a little bit over the top with the rules and the bow to your sensei kind of shit. And judo. Yeah, I just never really saw that. That's just my experience. It could be different. Maybe you could go to other places, but just from what I experienced, it was very different. I think in the sense of how the judo guys train, and the way that we train in jiu-jitsu is so different, man. Like the pace is way more intense in judo. The warm-ups are way longer. The amount of rounds that they'll do standing, and it's just cool. My journey with judo started, right around when I was probably a blue belt, and I started watching the UFC, and I'd see Carl Parisian, and Pride was around at that time, and I always kind of found like Yoshida and all those guys were really interesting in the way they fought. Just their takedowns were freaking cool, man. Like the stuff they would get on people and the counters and the trips and the inside sweeps was just really dynamic. And coming from surfing and longboarding where there's a lot of footwork and cross stepping and stuff, it just sort of, because judo, it's all cross stepping, back cross stepping, forward, different things. Not that you're supposed to keep your feet crossed, but just the way that they enter into stuff, it had a real similarity for me. Having two kids, blowing my knee out, and then running a school, I don't really have a whole lot of time to be going to judo academies. So obviously my journey to get to black belt took much longer. It's normally about 5 or 6 years if you're consistent, maybe 7 at the most for the average judo guy to get to black. It took me 17. But that was just based off of just responsibilities keeping me from being able to really put the time in. But I've always kind of started round standing, and that's really how you get good at it. I by no means am nearly as successful in judo as I have been in jiu-jitsu. There's just way more jiu-jitsu competitions that sort of fell into my schedule, as opposed to like the judo stuff would be at a time when I got to leave, or I got other stuff going on. But my coach, Mark Hidalgo, was Ronda Rousey's boyfriend back in the day when she was in the Olympics and all that kind of stuff. I actually got to meet Ronda when I think I was a brown belt. She came to our academy one night, this is way before she got into MMA, and she came and trained with all of us. She put a blue belt on too, which is pretty interesting. She didn't have a white belt; she had a blue belt. Uh, some dudes got their ass beat. Like, yeah, dude, a brown belt got armbarred, was making all kinds of excuses. Oh, I was being nice. I did not mean to do that. I was like, no, dude, you got caught. And I don't think anyone in the room really knew who she was. I didn't even really know. Mark kind of explained to me afterwards. I had another one of my friends kind of like, obviously the floor work is totally different, and you add in dude strength, and it's, there's going to be an advantage. He was kind of being disrespectful the way he was passing her guard and kind of clowning her a little bit. And she got this like cross collar grip on him and sort of straight armed him, and he backed up, and dude, his feet scraped the lights. Yeah, she threw him like he was like, oh my God, what was that? Like, whoa, gee, who is this? And Mark was like, dude, she just got bronze in the Olympics. Like, she's being nice. Um, And he even made a joke. He's like, "You want to keep passing her guard? Get up and do a round with her standing." And he was, "Oh, no, no, I'm good, bro. I don't want to do that. It's fine." But I mean, dude, she chucked him one handed, like, boom. I mean, it was really impressive. I became a really big Ronda fan after that. Uh, and honestly, her work and the UFC was incredible. If you really break down what she did, yeah, everybody's run comes to an end. If you have 10 epic fights in a row, your battery might start to wear. You've only got so much. And then given you came from an Olympic background, dude, over time it's going to wear, and your drive after you've had that much success is going to start to kind of wean on you. Um, but if you look at the work she did, the moves that she did, the sequences, that's the way she broke grips, dude, it's a study within itself. I tell people this all the time. I'm like, you need to really watch what she did. It was groundbreaking. I don't think anybody's got that many armbar finishes. Maybe Giva Santana might be the only other one. I don't know if anyone knows who that is. He was the arm collector. The guy would like pull close guard, let people beat the shit out of him for 3 rounds, and then he would catch an arm. Like, it was incredible. He's my favorite IBJJF ref, by the way. Whenever he's reffing or I see him at stuff, I'm always like, that dude's the man right there. And I'll point to my friends and like, who's that? And then I'll tell them, and they'll look it up, and they're like, whoa, uh, whoa, I had no idea. But Rhonda kind of, dude, same thing. And again, like, between her and Caro and the Pride guys, it just really like, it opened my eyes to like, man, maybe there's some shit that we got to learn. Uh, they have way better arm locks than we do. Like, we're not even in the same conversation as far as the way that they collect arms and at the speed that they do it, and like under the scrutiny of time that they have, which is 30 seconds. They school us. And my arm locks got better once I learned judo. All the variations and different stuff. And Sambo too. Sambo's dope, man. Sambo's got some really cool, combinations with it. They get the stuff. It's a study that you definitely need to put your time into if you want to be a well-rounded grappler. I would recommend doing your homework and giving it a shot. And then if you add wrestling to that mix, well, now you're in the well-rounded category, and it's going to be hard for people to get stuff on you. Wrestling's kind of like is so crucial to no gi, and keeping people tied down and tying the legs up and different shit. And I always kind of tried to learn wrestling. I met Daryl Christensen when I was a brown belt around the same time that I saw Rhonda come through the gym. Daryl they were both at the same Olympics, and Daryl came in maybe a month later. And then years later, I met him through BJ Penn's camp for Nick Diaz. And it kind of really opened my eyes that I needed to kind of practice more. And then, when I brought Justin Flores over to Studio 540, that really tripped me out, just because of the way he moved. I've still to date, he might have the best style I've ever seen in judo. Well, no one really knew who he was before we kind of brought him over to 540. He was kind of like a secret weapon. I had been following the dude around since MySpace. And Donaher actually was the one that, because I was training at Henzo's all the time. And one day he pulled me aside and he's like, Joe, have you met Justin Flores? And I said, no, dude, I know I've heard of him. I don't know him. And he's like, you two need to connect up. He's like, he lives out in California. He's like, I'd recommend at some point you try and track him down. He's like, you guys both would benefit from training together. So I would message Justin for years trying to like, hey dude, if you're in California, maybe we should connect up. And he hadn't moved back out here yet. And then when he finally moved back, he messaged me and I started to reach out to Rob Zepps, trying to facilitate giving him an opportunity to come and teach. And this is kind of funny. Rob was like, oh, Joel, no one's interested in judo. We don't need judo here. And even the guy that I gave a job at 540 to run the gym kind of told me the same shit. I mean, what's the point of all this floor fighting if fucking none of you can take anyone down? It's kind of like, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. It's so stupid. And I cannot tell you how many schools do not train takedowns or instructors that fucking couldn't teach a throw. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like, whoa, there's a major hole in that particular part of it, right? So we ended up, convincing Justin to come over. Rob had the money to pay him. It wasn't an easy sell at first because, like I said, Rob and the other dude were just kind of like, nobody wants to learn judo. And I was just sort of like, oh yeah, okay. And then Daryl and I kind of started this wrestling program, and we invited Justin to come and be part of it. I'll send you the flyer later. I'll text it to you. It's pretty funny when you see it. I'll send you the flyer from the first one we did. And Daryl and I had a huge relationship with the fight community here in San Diego. I knew all the guys from Alliance. I'd trained with all of them at Dean Lister's place for years. So they knew that I wasn't, some dork that couldn't keep up. And, Daryl at the time was kind of like the secret weapon for BJ Penn and a ton of dudes fighting. He had taught a lot of people how to defend takedowns and how to use a different angle for wrestling for fighting. So between the crowd that we brought to those initial first classes, they got to see it firsthand how insane Justin was, right? And everybody kind of became a fan because there's not many instructors that have that kind of smooth. It's like smooth surfing, good surf style. It'll last for the decades, right? And judo, for the most part, a lot of guys are pretty rough. And their instruction, the way that they teach, and even their DVDs suck. You watch them and they're just kind of like, whoa, this guy's like really rough. Where Justin is just so smooth, right? And the timing and the footwork. And then the better part was, he would pair up with these like world champs and fucking make them look like white belts. I mean, literally white belts, dude. Like not a point scored. No way in hell you're going to get there. Daryl was the same situation, but Daryl is kind of scary, dude. If he grabs onto you, gets a body lock, like you're in really big trouble of like landing on your neck, where Justin would like kind of dance around and laugh at you and like load you up and then like set you down, like instead of like really following through and trying to injure you. So for the fight guys, they were more inclined to go his direction just because of his teaching style and how nice he was when he trains with you, right? Where like Daryl will scare the shit out of you. He'll get a hold of you, dude, at an angle, and you're like, whoa, 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 don't do that. Where Justin's just like, he knows where he can hurt you, and he just won't do it. So that was sort of the beginning of him taking off, and it was the beginning of me looking at a different kind of judo. My coach is really great. Him and Justin kind of have similar accolades. Justin obviously a little more famous, but seeing his style of the way he did things made me want to finish the journey. Like I had my brown belt for like a decade, in judo. And then, obviously watching Justin's stuff, and then the 4 or 5 years I was around him, I learned a lot. And I finished the journey. I finally finished it recently,
I saw, yeah, it was back in May. I think it was May you got your black belt, right? Huge congratulations, man. That's really awesome. It's always awesome seeing someone who's already a very accomplished black belt want to branch out and explore more and learn more and get certified in more things. It really is cool. Through surfing in your years in jiu-jitsu, I imagine your balance must be amazing. With that said, how do you look at the art of off balancing someone else? Like when you're doing judo or fighting on the feet, I'd love to hear your perspective on how you see off balancing as someone that has spent so much time being good at balancing yourself.
The real trick to judo is moving the guy around and kind of making them light on the side that you're trying to attack, right? So it's like footwork and movement. You've got to be able to, kind of check the person to make them step wrong. Just actually like stepping into something and getting it's pretty hard. You got to push them, make them push back. I actually, I kind of cheat. I use wrestling a lot to kind of make the person panic, and move away thinking they're going to get double legged or single legged. And I'm also a big fan of making them grab onto me. I'm kind of like a counter judo guy. My hands are fucked from all the years of holding a lapel and grip breaking. So I don't really want to get into that fight. I would prefer if you grabbed onto me first, which I know is like taboo in judo. It's kind of like a counter wrestler. Like I have friends that counter wrestled in college. Your record's not very good. You're kind of at 50-50 because you're gonna get countered a lot to your style, as opposed to being aggressive and kind of shooting forward. Yeah, and that's it. It's really just like foot combinations and making the guy step and then catching it. I think a lot of times we see stuff where you see people do the move and you're like, oh, I'll just do it. That's really not the case. And it's also really important, all the uchikomis of like lifting the person and you have to do thousands of those things to be able to get the guy on his toes. You can't just like step in and hit shit without basically keeping people on their toes or stepping the wrong way. And that's the big thing that people overlook. And that's like the real secret to judo is making the guy step wrong. That's why when Majid and when I made that last thing for BJJ Fanatics, we called it not judo because it really wasn't judo. It is a lot of the stuff that I'm doing in there, but not in a traditional sense on the way that you go for it. Actually, Glover was the one that came up with the name because he was sitting on the bench when we shot that whole thing. Jeff was there, and we were trying to come up with a name, and he's all not judo, and because he was watching it too. And Jeff's may not have a belt in judo, but try and do stand up with him. Let me know how that works out for you. One of my favorite Glover stories ever was when we were at 540. The Royal Navy Judo Club from England came through one night, and it was like a whole pack of them, and they were pretty good, dude. Guys were pretty good. European judo is pretty good. And they were doing all their stuff, and Jeff was like super hungover. He had been partying like on a 3-day bender, and he kind of came in and was watching because he loves a challenge. He really does. And he was watching how good they were, and then he kind of looked at me and he's like, "Do you have a gi I can borrow?" And I said, "Yeah, man, go grab mine out of the cubby in there." So he went in and put a gi on. He went out and took every single one of them down, like with shit where they were laughing. Like when they'd land, they'd be like, "Oh, what was that?" Because Jeff doesn't care about your stupid rules. Like he's still doing leg grabs and pant grips. Like he's not playing to an Olympic standard or whatever. But he was just catching these guys off balance with like foot sweeps and fucking ankle picks and just shit that they had never seen. And they all knew who he was. So it's not like it was like some surprise to them. Judo guys know about jiu-jitsu. I don't think jiu-jitsu guys necessarily know who all the judo players are, but vice versa, they know who's who. And they all are definitely well aware of who Jeff was. But hungover, probably hadn't slept really well in about 3 days, never does judo, ever. And he went in and they all got schooled. I was right there. I watched it. And I think when we were talking about it afterwards, he's like, "Dude, I've fought so many judo guys, he's like, so many, like, in scenarios that are, pretty gnarly. And he's lost to judo guys too. So it was just cool to watch. I would definitely say Jeff is a high level black belt in judo who doesn't own a black belt.
That's really great. Yeah, it's funny. You and I were talking off air beforehand about how I love the title you gave Jeff at your school. He's the permanent
substitute teacher. Yeah, it's permanent. It's not the teacher we wanted. It's the teacher we got.
He's one of my favorites, man. But
no,
you were talking about how good he is.
I say it in a joking way. I love Jeff. We're so lucky. The school's so lucky. Like, and all of our students understand it too and say the same thing. And then we kind of leave the gym to him to do privates in exchange for him coming down and teaching. He'll come in town and he'll use the spot to, teach a handful of classes. So for him, it's profitable. It's worth the time to be able to come in and cover the classes. And we give him free reign. No one's standing over him, giving him, parameters of how he can teach. So he's the permanent substitute teacher. Um, yeah, and it's great. And then, like I said, between the three of us, between and hey, dude, Majid's got a black belt in judo too. He's never actually been awarded it, but his stand up with the gi and grips and stuff, and given the size of his hands, and like you're not going to break his grips and shit. Like he's very, very, very good. He just needs to put the time in before Mark's going to actually award him the belt. I'm sure it's going to happen pretty soon, but he's just so busy with ADCC and everything else. He doesn't have time to be doing any extra pajama wrestling than he needs to.
Do you feel that most people in jiu-jitsu who are at an advanced level would be on an accelerated path if they started judo?
Yeah, oh yeah, any high level black belt guy for sure. They kind of everybody knows a little bit, you know. If you're in a competitive sense, everybody knows a little bit. Um, honestly, I watched Megaton when I was coming up in the belts and tournaments, and dude, he was incredible to watch because the guy would just go out and chuck people, yokotomoe, yokotomoe. Like, I mean, I saw him put on so many cool matches where I was just like, man, if that skinny guy who looks like he's got the same build as me can do that, then I need to learn how to do that shit. And he was a big inspiration. I think he was the 1984 Rio State judo champion for Brazil. Um, it- you know, big respect. I always bow to that guy whenever I see him. He's a super legend, but he also played a role in me wanting to learn.
Joel, let me ask you this, man. When it comes to playing on the feet, what are some ways that you see people waste movement? Because I know that that's something that new people to stand to the stand-up game experiences. They waste a lot of movement. What are some things that you would point out to people new to learning how to use throws and takedowns to not waste so much movement?
Hey, just look how close you are to the person. That's what I say to everybody. I'm like, look how close you are. If the guy starts backing out and you're right next to him and he's trying to like get his arms away and back up, double leg the guy. You know what I mean? Like your level change, you don't know. There's no distance. You could just, just elevator down and go right through him. Um, I see a lot of people wasting time with collar ties, which is just wild because it's so easy to dip under somebody or to like get a 2-on-1 based off of them holding or a drag by or all these different things. There's just a huge disconnect between the wrestling and the judo, where they'll just waste their time trying to like grip and move each other around, and not realizing that like that gripping and moving each other around, you're in a perfect angle to like shoot through somebody for wrestling, and at the same time wrestling can kind of set you up for stuff too, like fucking with people trying to touch their legs. They'll back up, and then it gives you space to step in and chuck them. Uh, does that make sense? That's kind of what, like, from me being around it for so long and being able to train with all these really good instructors. That's just my take. I I I I think you need to really assess how far away the person is, and then make a decision based off of where they're standing on what you're going to go for. And both styles help each other, right? Like 100%. So you know, quit wasting your time with fucking lasso guard, right? Like, and learn some shit, learn some takedowns. You might end up getting in a fight one day. It's not going to help you to pull guard, right? You're not going to be able to sit down and be like, okay, I'm going to do worm guard. That's not going to happen. And going for berimbolo on cement's you're gonna get scraped up. Being from the Carlson side, I've been able to spend a lot of time with the older era of Carlson guys who every single one of them went on to fight. And Mario Sperry said to me one time, he's all, "Hey Joel, if you're on your back, you're losing." It's like, I just want to remind you of that. He's like, in fighting and in jiu-jitsu, if you voluntarily put yourself there and you sit there the whole time, you lost, you know? And I think the Cade Rotolo fight recently against the Joseph kid was kind of a big reminder of that. We're in this era where social media just allows all these fucking knuckleheads to run their mouth through the comments who are just completely unqualified and don't have a clue. Um, and I was reading all the people saying stuff, and I just kind of was like, man, that fight wasn't even close. That was a one-sided fight. The guy got taken down twice and then decided to stay on his back. You lost, dude. Like, there's no, like, it's not even close at that point because you lost the key element that starts the fight. You got put down 2 times, right? Unless you get back up and fight for it. And even the way the OIBJJF rules, they would make you get up in sudden death. You know what I mean? Not this bullshit of starting in an arm lock or starting on your back, which is, fucking ridiculous. Because if you can't get to my back, you don't fucking deserve to be there, right? And if you can't pass my guard and get my arm, then you sure as shit shouldn't be able to start an arm lock. It should go back to the wrestling, back to on your feet, and whoever wins in that sudden death 2 minutes is the champion. That's just my opinion. I've competed at the highest level for a very long time. I don't necessarily compete much anymore, but that's from a combat perspective. That's that. And I remember watching the fight and reading the shit that people were saying, and I was just like, man, we're in such an uneducated era of people mouthing off with no experience or any idea of how it really works. And like Mario said, if you're going to lay on your back and you ain't going to get up and fight the takedown, dude, you lost. Like, it's not close. You got beat. And ADCC is that way. IBJJF kind of that way. Their rules are a little weird. They have rules that work against the wrestler and definitely work against the judoka, right? There are some things that they need to kind of switch a little bit. I think for people that take our sport seriously, right? There needs to be more fighting from the feet. I'm not necessarily saying like how the Olympics have been, where it's just like, I was watching the Olympics the other day, the judo part. Occasionally you'll see a throw, but it's a lot of grip fighting, dude. It's just kind of like pointless. They made the rules so soft and took so many things out. It's just like people holding onto each other and like regripping and gripping, as where they used to be able to kind of like, you could double leg people, you could use the pant grips. You had a huge, bigger variety of stuff. I just think there needs to be a major rule overhaul on both sides. Judo needs to go backwards and allow all the old stuff. Jiu-jitsu needs to adapt and make the standing portion more important. ADCC is like the Wild West. I don't really understand those rules, and I've competed in it. There's some whack shit in that part too, where they kind of like, they negate the first 5 minutes of the round and don't act like anything happened, and then judge it based on when everybody's super sweaty and nothing works, right? That part is kind of a little weird. I was listening to the rules for Craig's tournament. I thought they were a little confusing for sure. I think they're going to be confusing for people to figure out who wins. But yeah, we need to make the stand-up portion more important and educate the fans on how that kind of works.
Something you said earlier really resonates with me. You said that it blows your mind that there's people out there who are teaching jiu-jitsu that don't know how to teach throws or takedowns properly. And that's just not an aspect of their game that they've ever really developed. And you do see that a lot in jiu-jitsu. And it's always mind-blowing to me as well. Like, if you're going to be a ground fighter and you can't take the fight to the ground, I've always said it's like being a pilot that can't take a plane off. Like, you can fly beautifully in the air, but you can't take it off the tarmac.
Yeah, you can't land it. You can't land the plane and you can't get it off the ground, but you're really good once you're floating. That kind of sums up about 90% of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I hate to say it. I mean, I don't want to give it such a high number, but it's really that big. I mean, I know schools where the instructors don't know shit as far as takedowns. They actually have to ask like a white belt student that's a D1 wrestler, like, hey, bro, can you teach a double leg? Because they don't know how, which is fucking wild, right? Or they got to like start a judo program or bring somebody in because they don't physically know how to do a single throw or trip. That part really kind of makes us look silly and stupid. And I learned that really early on and kind of like made a point. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've pulled guard a million times in fights. And actually, Jeff and I both joke about this. Like, the majority of our success was pulling guard for sure. But that's a rule within our sport that allows us to do it, which is cool. But I think we're good. We both have good guards. So why not put somebody there and try and catch them? I think if both of us didn't submit as many people as we did, then that would kind of make us look silly. But I know Jeff and I both have. I was telling my friend yesterday. I said, have you ever submitted your whole division, like every fight? Because I've done it from white to black. Every belt I've submitted my entire division over and over and over again from kind of the same scenarios. And I know Jeff has kind of got a similar story, where a lot of people are points guys. They win by an advantage. They win by it's really important to have like a certain area that you go to that you're just like really good at. And my guard and Jeff's guard were both, battle tested. We caught a lot of people slipping once we got them there. I don't really play guard that much anymore, just because the judo part's so fun for me, and I'm still learning the wrestling. And passing's obviously, playing guard sucks a lot. You're just like, got these fucking dudes sweating on you. And, it's just kind of like, I try to eliminate that as much as possible. But yeah, if I do fall there, I'll go for it. But it's not where I want to be all the time, you know?
Yeah. Well, also you and Jeff both have really effective both submissions and sweeps. Like your abilities, both of your abilities to reverse position and get to the top is, I mean, second to none.
Majid too. Majid's very good at it.
Majid too.
Very, very, very good at it. He's nice to me. He's a lot younger, and he doesn't fucking kick my ass like he could, which I'm very thankful for. Kids. I mean, he's 32 now. He's not so much a kid anymore, but in comparison, I'm 48. So I acknowledge the kindness of how he trains with me, which is cool. And I really am thankful for the people that come and visit the gym. The majority are really cool. Occasionally, you'll get a fucking knucklehead that thinks it's the Pan Ams, tries to go like they're going 90. But yeah, for the most part, everyone's pretty nice when they come through. And as you get older, you kind of want to you got to slow the pace on how hard you're training. For longevity, if you really want to make it, to be able to do it at an older age, you can't be fighting every round like you're fighting for a world title. That's definitely a youthful take on training. I just want to be able to train every day. And so I pick my training partners wisely and try not to fucking go too crazy.
That's smart. That's smart. Joel, I recently had both Travis Stevens and Shintaro Higashi on the show, and I asked them both this question. I'd like to get your opinion on this too. What do you think is the most underutilized judo technique that could work really well in jiu-jitsu if more people started using it?
Koichigari, Ochigari. Those two are the best because people in jiu-jitsu kind of like straight arm and kind of squat and bend over. And both of those moves are kind of universal. And like when you tie up with a person, you can do it from a backpack grip. You can do it from a 2-on-1. You can do it from shoulder grip. You can do it from, there's just a lot. I think those two, going for like a Seanagi is really risky, because if you fuck up, you give your back. It's the same thing with Uchimata. A lot of those things you land in this position where like, dude, like we're just, like I said, the judo guys are better at arm locks. Well, getting your back taken and getting strangled, we're way better, as far as from a jiu-jitsu perspective, you're tripping. Like you land and you do that shit with a high level guy, you're done, right? And we'll take our time. There's no 30 seconds that there's some guy, or you can turn stomach down and look at the ref. That shit ain't gonna happen. You do one of those throws and you land and there's 7 minutes on the clock, good night. You're gonna get finished. So I think there's a lot of risk in a lot of the traditional judo throws. You go for stuff, dude, you better be real careful, man. And you also got to remember you can get leg locked. You guys don't do leg locks in judo. We're like in jiu-jitsu, we'll take your foot home, you know what I mean? Or we'll knee bar you real quick if you fuck up. So that's where I kind of think training in both kind of gives you a bigger spectrum of what to be worried about and what can cost you by making a mistake. Sambo has some really weird, stupid rules. Like they don't really do like guillotines and neck strangulations, weird shit. Where judo, they do a lot of, I think it's called shimiwaza, which is like chokes, but their chokes are kind of soft, right? They like, anytime someone does a move and it gives France and Japan a hard time, France and Japan get together and they're like, illegal maneuver, and because of the majority of the union that does it, it's like bullshit. That chick from Israel, I think it's been about 8 years in the World Cup, I don't know if you remember this, she was half throwing people because there's a whole game of like not completely taking them down, just making them land on their hands and knees. And man, she was just Peruvian necktying everybody. Like I think she had 3 or 4 fights in a row where she strangled her way to victory. Japan and France got together and were like, oh, illegal, oh, whoa, illegal, in the same way they did it for all the other countries that were countering their traditional throws and getting them with pant grips and double legs and shit. They all got together and made it illegal. That part's kind of whacked. I mean, yeah, a little weird, that one. I think you should, if anything, if the move's working, you should let it stay, right? You don't take it away. You keep it incorporated, and it makes the art look better, right? You have more options for a finish, which at the end of the day, both sports, that's what we're looking for. Nobody wants to win by points. It's way better to make the person give up and say uncle. So yeah, that part I've never really kind of understood. But you know, whatever, rules are rules. That's another part with competing. I've also never understood people that don't understand rules. You'll see guys get disqualified for different shit. Obviously, there's some gray area in some places with like leg reaping and stuff, but there's also you'll see people like go for a heel hook with a gi on. You're like, what the fuck, dude? Are you? What's wrong with you? Yeah, I've not even read the book. Like, whoa, dude, come on. Like, if you want to do that, go do no-gi tournaments and enter the advanced division. You know, I guess people in the heat of the moment forget that kind of stuff. I never did. And I'm not really like a big rules guy. But when you compete, it's really easy to understand what you're allowed to do and what you're not. Uh, I mean, it's
If you're an advanced practitioner, you know how to curb certain things depending on where you're trained and where you're competing.
Yeah, it's kind of black and white. I know today, I don't know who's coming in, but Rockhold and Felipe Pena and those guys have been kind of training together for these camps. I've been kind of missing. Surf's been fun, so I've been going surfing instead of going to that class. But I've been seeing the pictures, and pretty cool. Cool to watch those guys all train together. They've kind of got a little routine down that they're doing. And I know Felipe's training down at Andre's. Andre and I are very close friends. I've known that dude since he was a skinny brown belt with a big afro, and I was a white belt. And one cool thing, the mutual respect that Majid and I get from the rest of the community here in San Diego, everyone kind of comes to visit us. I can't say a lot of schools can say that. We get kind of everybody on Saturdays or just nights that they just want a laid back environment, don't want to have to like adhere to a bunch of rules. We get a lot of people stopping through. So we kind of serve as like a psychiatrist for all the strict schools. We give them an option to come in and feel normal for the night or for the day. And it's cool. We get a lot of people that stop in and come and visit us. So we're really thankful to, all the drop-ins and people that come in and support the school.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, like I said, it's one of the major destinations on my list that I really hope to be able to visit someday. And in fact, speaking of which, I know you have to teach soon, Joel, so I don't want to hold you here too long. I'm going to play. There's a game I play with every guest called the Pummel. You played this last time you were on the show. I'm going to play an accelerated version because I do have some technical stuff I want to ask you before we go. So a quick version of the Pummel game for the people new to the show. The Pummel is a series of random questions. Some of these are about jiu-jitsu. Some of them have nothing to do with jiu-jitsu. But Joel, if you'd like to play for the second time, I'd love to play this with you.
Go right ahead.
All right, man. I've added a few new questions since you've been on. Question 1, what's the largest animal you think you could beat in hand-to-hand combat?
I mean, I've seen some people wrestle some wild-looking animals. I don't necessarily think I want to wrestle those animals. I don't have anything to prove. I'd rather wrestle a human that was that size, Yeah, I'm not trying to prove efficiency by wrestling a bear or a cow I just don't. Like, I'll mess around with my dog. I got a German short-hair pointer that's a total spaz, and just keeping a hold of her is enough work within itself. Like, my parents have a huge hit pit bull. I wouldn't wrestle that dog if you paid me. Like, I'm afraid to get near his head when he's eating. He'll headbutt me or like give the dog a kiss or something. So I'm not trying to prove anything that. Well, if that answers the question.
Well, here, I'll ask a follow-up because you mentioned wrestling with your dog. I love wrestling with my dog too. So do you have any techniques that you use, like dog jitsu techniques that you use with your dog to keep her on the ground or keep her pinned or keep her from...
Well, she fucking cheats. She bites. So you gotta you gotta be careful. Yeah, but I just kind of like, I'll get her back and kind of, or I'll put her in like a head and arm and hang on to her. I'm obviously being gentle because my dog's old and I don't want to hurt her. But yeah, just basic stuff. I'll like ankle pick her, like push her head and hit her leg, just like little things that are funny. And then like she just spazzes and jumps on me like a white belt. It's pretty good. I wrestle my kids. I go out and I torture my son. Tosh is never home. Tosh has been gone for like 3 years. He's a professional surfer now, and he's off doing what I did at that age. I didn't get into jiu-jitsu till I was 25, so hopefully maybe a little later in life he'll come back around. Tosh was an orange belt in judo. Um, I had him in judo as a kid. My youngest was actually pretty decent at judo too. I had them both in that because I feel like it's more important at a young age. Wrestling and judo, I think, is I see the put your kids in jiu-jitsu. It's a great idea. Put your kids in wrestling and judo first. That's my personal opinion. Just because it's something that the little guy can have success against bigger people. Where in jiu-jitsu, when they're kids, that is not the case. The big kid's going to win every time, just by sheer brute strength and size. In judo, you could be littler than somebody, and it's the whole idea of the cup being above the wall, below the wall, and the wall falls over the cup. And wrestling's the same thing. I feel like the hard work in those two sports in the beginning, and the discipline, and the amount of warm ups and how much shit they do, and body conditioning, is really crucial for young people in their developmental part of being like under the age of 14. That's just my take. I've been around this shit a long time. Also, the muscle memory of being involved in those two sports. When you actually step over to jiu-jitsu, jiu-jitsu becomes easy. So that's just my take. I don't know if it's easy to find a judo school here in San Diego. There's a couple. I know Justin's brother, Jacob, opened one called San Diego Judo, and Jacob's just as good as Justin. Incredible instructor, and they've got some of my friends down there teaching. If you're in San Diego, that's a great school to go check out. We have a judo program at our school on Fridays that Mark Hidalgo, my coach, teaches. It's really cool too. It's only one day a week just because we don't have the schedule to fit it in for every day or every other day. And wrestling programs, if you're looking for something for your kid, go online. I'll guarantee you'll see a camp or something in their summer break or whatever. And then when they get in school, if the singlet outfit doesn't bother them, put them in it. A lot of kids don't like wearing the singlets because it's too revealing. Me personally, I feel like if they would change the outfits and allow it to be just trunks and a rash guard, it would be the most popular sport in school. That's just my take, and it would grow submission wrestling. Like, it would grow huge if these schools would just get rid of that ridiculous fucking outfit. It is so fucking lame. It is so lame. I don't care what anybody says or, oh, it's tradition. You guys look ridiculous in that thing, dude. And it needs to kind of adapt as time's gone on, and for the sport to really take off and kind of merge together, they need to make it trunks and a rash guard. That's just me. It also gives you more grip and less slip and less spastic behavior when people can actually hold on to something. And long sleeve rash guard would be a huge addition to wrestling. That's just that's me. I'm sure not a lot of people. I'm sure a lot of people aren't going to agree with me. A lot of my friends that are old school wrestlers are like, fuck that. You need to wear the outfit. It's tradition. And I'm just like, dude, you guys don't get it. But yeah, whatever. Put your kids in wrestling. Put your kids in judo. Then put your kids in jiu-jitsu.
Excellent. I love that. That's a great take, man. I do remember in high school and middle school, even there was a lot of kids that wanted to wrestle, but the reservation, they felt very conflicted about the spandex and the singlet. And I think you're right, man. I think that would, if they went to shorts and rash guard or shorts and a shirt, it'd be much more accessible for more people. Let me ask you another question here, Joel. So if you found a genie lamp and you could make 3 wishes, normal genie rules apply. So no killing people and no wishing for more wishes. What 3 wishes would you choose?
I'd ask for never-ending money.
Good one. I like that. Yeah, I like that.
I'd ask for no bills, free living, and eternal life for my family and I. Right, to where you don't have to worry about worrying about losing a family member, and you get to be with each other forever. Those 3 things would fix the entire planet. Do you know what I mean? I don't need a nice car. I've got a house. I'm lucky. But I think everybody in the world kind of deserves those those 3 opportunities. Obviously, that's not the case. We only have a limited time here on Earth. But if I were to find, the genie in the bottle, that would be my 3 things that I would ask for.
Joel, have you ever had a supernatural experience? Ghosts, extraterrestrials, anything like that?
Yeah. Yeah, I had my first alien experience last summer.
No way. What happened?
We were out in Montauk, on a friend's property. It was really clear, and we were all kind of joking around about it, kind of after dinner, and then we all went outside and we're just kind of sitting around shooting the shit, because it was so pretty out. We were watching the stars, and I watched this configuration of, and these weren't shooting stars. I've never seen anything like that in my life. And we got out that app that has like the satellites going by on your phone that you can see all the stuff. So we put it up to see if it was a satellite, and it wasn't a satellite either. And it was just like these little, like, they looked like shooting stars, but they were dropping down, going sideways, going back up diagonally, going back around, and there were like all kinds of them. I mean, it wasn't just one particular one. It was like a pack, and it went on for like 20 minutes. And all of us just kind of sat there like, what the fuck? What is that? And then once we had the thing out, because, obviously my friend's like, those are satellites, bro. That's a fuck, those are going to us. So once we got the thing out, we were like, no, those aren't satellites. They're not even registering, right? Like, what the fuck? And I had a friend growing up whose dad was a Portuguese fisherman who would take off, for 4 to 6 months of the year fishing. When we were kids, we asked him, we said, have you ever seen anything like out at sea? And he just kind of shook his head and he goes, I've seen shit that doesn't make sense and you'd never understand. And it always kind of stuck with me. I'm a pretty spiritual out there guy. I'd never seen anything. I know my dad saw something when he was a kid out hunting with some friends. They were coming back from the middle of nowhere and they watched some shit. My dad said it was, clearly not an airplane. And, definitely not a street light or something in the distance, a fair where the lights are up. He said it kind of tripped him out a little bit. And, for me to see that, it definitely opened my eyes that we're probably not the only ones out there that have access to human life. I think it's kind of really selfish and uneducated for us to think that we're the only planet that has the capability of this, right? So, believe what you want. I know what I saw wasn't fake and wasn't real. I'm not going to go into super detail as to exactly, how much more we saw, but yeah, there's some shit out there. I think over time, the world's conditioned enough and advanced enough now for people to be able to be told what's really going on. I know that the government's had the information for a very, very, very long time. They're really kind of selective in how much they tell us, obviously, because it's going to freak some people out. It's going to make religion kind of panic just because the story that they tell doesn't really align with that so much. Who knows? We'll see in time. But I know what I saw, and on a clear night, stare at the stars. That's all I'm going to tell you. And check it out, and you might see the same thing I saw.
That's incredible. I mean, when you understand how big the galaxy is, when you understand how large the universe is, it really is kind of not realistic to think that we're the only things with technology and life and the ability to travel across the into space and everything. So I definitely believe it. I believe aliens exist.
It's infinite. It's like jujitsu. It doesn't end. It always evolves. That's one of the things that I kind of found so fascinating with jiu-jitsu. It just does not stop. The advancement of it is there's just constantly somebody coming up with something. Even if it's not a new move, it's a different variation. And I think that that's what's super cool about jiu-jitsu and why it's really important for your brain and just for your overall health. It's challenging till the very end. I know Fabio Santos had told me one time, he was like, bro, you think jiu-jitsu is challenging now? Wait till you're in your 60s. He was like, he goes, that's when the real challenge begins. You know what I mean? He's like, you have all this knowledge, but you can't use it anymore. He's like, because your body limits you to the movement and how much you're able to do based off of your age. Now that I'm creeping up on 50, I still train like twice a day, every day, except for Sunday. I totally understand what he's saying. But again, you just have to adapt. And it's, brain health is really important. Jiu-jitsu is super good for your brain. Not getting choked out, that's not good for your brain. But just the constantly being challenged and having to come up with solutions, problem solving is really important. And obviously active training keeps you in shape. So, why not? Take it up, give it a shot. Help your brain, start jiu-jitsu.
Absolutely. Yeah. Another question for you. Do you have any tattoos?
No, I do not. I made it this far in life, and I don't have any. Uh, I just, my grandfather was covered head to toe kind of deal on my mom's side. Yeah, he actually got them all from Sailor Jerry in Hawaii. And well, at that time, there was only like one tattoo shop. You know what I mean? And it was his. And if you were coming home from Korea or one of these wars, and you stopped in Honolulu, like all the ships did, everybody would have leave for a couple days and get hammered because they just fought in battle and they got fucking tattooed. And my grandpa had a ton, and he had all the pinup girls and all the shit down his legs, and but he was really embarrassed of them at that time because tattoos were kind of, they were the for the rough and tough tumble crew. It was taboo, and to have, they weren't even naked women. They were just like pictures of what at that time was considered obscene. So he always covered himself up. He always wore long pants and long shirts, and he was a mailman when he came back. He retired, U.S. Postal Service worker, and he just kind of hid it from us. And he'd always kind of like, "Don't do it. Don't do it to yourself." So I just never did it. Have nothing against them. I mean, my gym's filled. Everybody in there's, covered fucking head to toe. I just never particularly found a T-shirt that I wanted to wear every day, sort of thing. Um, and that's that. I just don't have them. But I got nothing against them. I tease my friends all the time. Because it's nowadays not having them is kind of like fucking rare, right? It was always me growing up. It was for like bikers, Army, Navy dudes, rough and tough, fucking crazy motherfuckers.
Like convicts and military. Yeah.
Yeah, like I was telling my friend the other day, like and me growing up, anyone that had like a teardrop under their eye, like did time and killed somebody. Teardrops under your eyes now mean you're like a sushi chef.
Oh, that's so good.
It's true, right?
You have an Asian fusion, like a fusion spot over by
Yeah,
the
dude,
beach.
you got
Yeah.
a fusion restaurant, some kind of, you know what I mean. So,
Oh, that's great. What do you think is your favorite bad food to eat? Favorite junk food?
favorite junk food? It just depends on how bad my munchies are at night. Um, I've been a big, obviously, I've been a big, activist for the marijuana community for a long time. I've been doing it since before it was legal, kind of deal. Um, at least, kind of stick it up for it. I mean, coming from jujitsu where everyone's kind of like abuses steroids, I always was just kind of like, all right, you guys are going to go the amphetamine route. I'm going to go the downer route. But I've been like that since, through surf, because in the surf world, at least for me, I grew up, longboarding where everyone was 35 years older than me. So I had these examples of what alcohol and hard partying did to everybody. It's just majorly deforming to people's figures and bodies and aging them quicker than they were. And we're like, all the dudes that smoke joints were kind of still in shape, active artists, uh, right? So I kind of chose the lesser of which one was going to be more damaging. And, I've just always kind of been on that. I'm on the mellow side of things, right? And in jiu-jitsu, it's kind of funny because it's sort of split the camps. Obviously, the 10th Planet crew are all like majorly pro-weed, which is kind of cool. I've always had respect for Eddie for that, for being the first one to have the balls to come out and make a book and kind of say like, hey, man, maybe smoke a joint before you go to class. Not every one of my students feels the same way. And I don't really push it on anybody. I make jokes and shit during class. But yeah, it's a lifestyle choice and it's up to you. And I'm an old hippie, dude. You know, I'm on the I'm choosing hippie power, right? Plant power, hippie power.
Yeah, that'll definitely have an impact on your junk food, though, for sure.
Oh, but I mean, as far as junk food goes, sorry, I got thrown off there. What you're saying, as far as junk food goes, I'll eat whatever, right? I try to. I don't know if you follow the Santa Cruz Medicinal kids. Have you seen those guys? Santa Cruz Paleo, Santa Cruz Medicinals. He's a jiu-jitsu kid that started like a supplement company that's all, he's really big on educating people on what exactly is in your food, um, what oils are wrong, like how many ingredients that you have no idea what they say or what it means and what it actually impacts on your diet and different things. And he is really good at like kind of telling you what you can eat as far as junk food and what you can't, and like what's gonna, I mean, I was just telling my friend yesterday, he like drinks Dr. Peppers all the time. And I was like, motherfucker, that stuff's got like 60 grams of sugar in each can. Like, I don't know if you ever put a gram in a plastic bag, put 60. Dude, it's crazy how much sugar it is. And then pour that into a glass of water and drink it. That's what the average soda is. And with the amount of diabetes and people getting Alzheimer's, which they're kind of like, they're coming around to understanding that it's kind of like yeast of the brain. It's like a yeast infection of the brain and your sugar intake and diabetes and all these things. You just got to be careful on how much junk you eat. If you are going to eat junk, make sure you have an active workout regimen that can kind of process it through and get it out of your system quicker. And that's that. I eat a lot of fruit before I go to bed. To be honest with you, if I get the munchies, that's kind of like the thing I'll eat the most. But don't get me wrong, I'll eat frozen yogurt. I'll go get an ice cream. The other day I was cleaning the gym after like training 15 rounds, and someone brought me a Snickers bar. It was fucking delicious. I also have a friend, and I don't want to go on forever, but my buddy Mark Allen. I don't know if you follow the Ironman. The Ironman competitions. Mark was a 4-time runner-up, 2-time winner. Right. All the years that he was a runner-up, he was a vegan, like hardcore vegetarian, and he would always get his ass beat in the last portion of the race that mattered. The guy would push past him and he'd lose. And he ended up kind of having these crazy dreams where he was like seeing this face that was telling him all this information. And he went to this holistic doctor, and the guy said to him, he goes, dude, your diet is why you're losing. He's like, you're eating so clean that you don't have enough gas in your tank to push through when it really counts. And he's like, I'm going to recommend that you eat cheeseburgers and candy bars leading into the race. He's like, because you need some shit that's going to sit in your system and is not going to process with the amount of exercise that you're doing. So Mark started eating cheeseburgers and candy bars, right? And he won the Ironman twice by just switching his diet to he had to put trash in the can, you know what I mean, in the gas tank. Because when you think about like you're running that many miles and then you're riding a bike 100 and something miles and you're swimming 3 miles, all within the same day. Gnarly, dude, what that does to your system. So he actually had to come up with some shit that had like major calories, all kinds of fucked up oils and different things that your body just could not process through. And he ended up winning.
It's all just the extra calories.
Yeah, I met Mark eating dinner one night. He and I shared the same lawyer for 25 years. He passed away recently, not Mark, but our lawyer did. And I just remember the conversations and him explaining that stuff. Because when I met him, I was like a hardcore vegetarian. And he would just kind of look at me and be like, one day you might need to eat some meat. Like one day you might need some extra energy and you're not going to get it from eating like this. I'm just telling you. And through the Santa Cruz Medicinal guys, I didn't eat meat for almost 28 years. I ate fish, which is pescatarian or whatever, but I would only eat it if my brother caught it. I never really went out and bought it. My brother's a fisherman, in his spare time. So he would go out diving and shoot fish, and we'd have fish or whatever. But they were always just kind of like, dude, if you're eating fish, you might as well eat a steak. You know what I mean? It's the least ingredients of all the things. I mean, he's like, you look at a veggie burger, it's like, you can't even fucking tell me what's in it. Like, you'd have to get out an encyclopedia or sit on Google and just like keep looking up information. And they were just kind of like, the more ingredients in your food, the more problems for your health. Right. And I really started listening to these kids because you couldn't argue with them. They're actually really schooled. They went to school for it. They have their nutrition facts down. It was really hard to dispute what they were saying. And in the last, I would say year or so, I kind of started eating meat again. Not a lot. I still eat probably 80 to 90% vegetarian. But when I say vegetarian, it's, if you were to look at, there's no ingredients into what I'm eating. It's like a couple things. I eat really clean. And then when my body's feeling deprived of the protein that I need, I'll eat a steak, I'll eat some chicken, right? I'll eat some eggs, the shit that's important, that's holding all that stuff. And I eat dairy now. The veggie vegan thing of no dairy is crazy. I'm already naturally really skinny. When I was like that, I was just like withering away. You know, I looked like I was dying. I still look really skinny, but in comparison to what I looked like in those years that I was fighting an uphill battle, yeah, I'm glad that I kind of sunk that ship. And I thank the Santa Cruz medicinal guys for being the ones to steer me that way. Obviously, Glover and Majib would always be like, dude, would you eat a fucking steak, man? What is wrong with you?
Is Glover still on that carnivore, a meat and fruit only diet?
Dude,
Is he still doing that?
he's out of his mind.
Is he still on it?
Yeah, hardcore steak and eggs every day. I don't necessarily understand it, but I'm not supposed to understand everything that your friends do. It's not really your responsibility. Um, I feel like fruit is really important to flush everything out. Same with vegetables. They just do an amazing cleanse of your insides, right? Keep you regular, which you kind of need, like multiple times a day, not just once in the morning. Um, it's important, right? So I think a balance, obviously not going completely veggie, not going complete meatarian, is kind of the better route. If I were to choose and give health advice for people's nutrition and how they eat, that would be my take.
Yeah, I remember he was telling me, Glover was telling me that when he first started the carnivore and fruit thing, he said, "Dude, I feel like better than ever. Like I feel amazing." And I was curious to see how long it would go for because you always have like someone that starts a diet and lasts a few months and then just kind of go back to normal. But that's interesting. He's still on it. That means there must be something that he's feeling that's making him want to keep doing it.
Yeah, I mean, both sides. The vegan vegetarian camp is ridiculous. The ones that just won't shut up about it. And it's kind of the same thing with the meat camp. You guys both are fucking the exact same in being extremist in the way that you're, educating people on stuff. I feel like if you're going to do it, just do it. If it feels good, maybe recommend it to people, but don't make it your identity, sort of thing. Because that boat could crash, right? If I could go 28 years without really eating meat, and then I'm like eating steaks every now and then, anything can happen. Anybody can change their ways. I just personally, I feel a little bit less tired since I started eating meat, if that makes sense. Obviously, as you get older, you're going to get tired. You're going to need to take naps and different stuff. But I feel like there's definitely some nutritional value. When I eat it, I feel it the next day, just like an extra boost of energy. So, you know, yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome, man. Well, I'm glad you found a good balance. And what are the guys that you said you were following? So I want to.
They're Santa Cruz Medicinals, Santa Cruz Paleo. It's this kid Brandon, and there's another kid named Organic Tarzan. Uh, he's hilarious. He makes like natural products because he's big on like educating people what they put on their bodies, what your deodorant has in it, what your lotion has, your soap, your shampoo, the water that comes out of your sink, like stuff that's just kind of suppressed information that not a lot of people care to learn about. It's really important. So those pages I really recommend to kids, and they kind of have a big following. They do really cool public outreach events where they invite everybody there and they educate them and give them free products. And it's really cool, inspiring to see a brand that's actually giving out proper health information.
That's good. Yeah, I'll for sure follow them. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
check them out.
Yeah. And Joel, I see we're getting short on time. I know you got to run and teach, so I'm going to wrap the pummel game up. Congratulations. You win for the second time. You got your double underhooks. Quick question for you before we leave. One obstacle that many practitioners face when they want to learn, we were talking about judo earlier and fighting from the feet. One thing that a lot of practitioners listening might run into is just a fear of injury. And this is especially prevalent among the guys that are over 40. What advice would you offer to people who want to become much more proficient on their feet, but have concerns about getting hurt in the process?
Be relaxed. Don't stay too lead-footed. Planting your feet too hard is what causes injury to your knees, especially when someone's altering your weight. Don't be afraid to fall. Really practice your uchikomis and your forward rolls, your backward rolls, how to do a proper flip, how to land on your side. All these things. I know they're really boring warm-ups that people do at the beginning of class, but mastering them is the key to non-injury. In judo, obviously Kani Basami, Tanitoshi, and variations of a Sotogari are kind of like the major knee tweakers because people will fight it and the guy will step and it'll it'll pop your MCL, or like Tanitoshi's like the ACL ender. That's the one that everybody rips their ACL on, just because people are taught it, but they don't understand the importance of tapping the outside leg, like catching the far leg, and they'll hang on your hip and hang into the outside of your knee, and it's just a straight inward torque, right, to the most extreme level. Those three things are really dangerous. It's pretty rare in wrestling you see somebody tear an ACL. Almost never, for the most part. Maybe like the odd meniscal injury or whatever, or MCL sprains kind of deal. But in judo, those three things that I just said are really, man, it's real serious. You can have to spend a year out that you didn't want to spend out, if you don't put the time in and learn how to do that stuff. And if you're going to learn those three moves that I just said, be really careful. Don't be a spaz. Remember, you don't want to break your toy. I tell this to every person before the round starts. Don't break your toy. You're not going to have anything to play with, right? You're not going to have anyone to train with. And be cool, be like a Justin Flores, not necessarily the amount of knee injuries he has, but like the smoothness and the way that he trains, and how he's very respectful with his training partners and not fucking trying to finish it like it's the Olympics. That's that. And strengthen your legs, dude. Get out and walk. Walk a couple miles a day if you can. Ride a bike uphill. Don't ride an electric bike. There's no workout in that at all. Ride a stationary bike. We bought a shitty old Schwinn from the 70s stationary bike that sits in the back of the gym. Take days off and pedal backwards. Put it at the highest cadence and strengthen your legs. Rubber band work. Obviously, the stronger you are from the hips down, the better off your knees are going to be, and the longer you'll be able to train without having to go see an orthopedic surgeon.
Great advice. Excellent advice, man. I want to make sure we mentioned your instructional again. You mentioned Not Judo, which is your instructional you filmed with Majid Hage. And I really enjoyed it. It's a great instructional. It's something I really appreciated was that you have a really great way of explaining complex techniques in a really digestible way. What are some things that you hope people take away from the Not Judo instructional if they decide to check it out?
Well, both. I made one called the Head and Arm. It's a head and arm series. And people are always like, but dude, you're in a Hawaiian shirt. I can't take this seriously. You have to understand, they were filming for a couple days of instructionals, and I came in one night at like 10:30 at night because I was driving home from dinner, and they were filming, and I walked in, and they were like, Zach was like, do you want to do one? And I said, yeah, I could do one. I'm not going to get changed. I'm just going to wear this outfit, what I'm wearing. I'm not putting on a gi or something else. I'll just keep the shirt on. Because I kind of feel like if you could do it in plain clothes, it's applicable, reaches a bigger audience rather than just having to put like pajamas on or some weird spandex no gi outfit. And it's funny, there's some stuff in there like the choke that the Rotolos are catching everybody with from the head, the head and arm when they turn sideways. That's actually in that DVD. That DVD is going on like 2 years old now. It was kind of something that, I learned over time. When people would defend the head and arm, they would turn the wrong way, and you can lock up that choke on the side. Obviously, having long arms, I got long arms, so do the Rotolos. So it's easy to, make that connection where a lot of people where you're short-armed, not so much. Both of them, I come from a school of thought where if it takes 5 minutes of explaining to teach a move, you lost me. You know what I mean? I'm really big into like the 3-step caveman of just like, done. And I think my teaching style is kind of like that. I try not to talk too much. I feel like talking, you get lost in the sauce, and you kind of start to forget the basic techniques. I'm way more Mario Sperry, which is just sort of like to the point. And that's sort of my teaching style. And I think with both DVDs, if you watch them, instructionals, you'll understand that's just the way I teach. I think we're going to do more next time Zach's out here. I'm super thankful for the opportunity. It's cool to be able to kind of permanently leave your teaching style out there for if people ever want to get it, and it's around, say you're not around one day, at least the stuff's there for people to be able to search and pull up. That's really important. I mean, imagine if look at how many Bruce Lee books there are, right? and it's there for us forever to be able to kind of study and learn. And BJJ Fanatics is obviously offering that for the grappling world. So, thanks for giving me the chance. And if you get a chance to check out my stuff, check it out.
Of course, no, we appreciate you sharing the knowledge, man. I mean, honestly, guys, both his instructionals really, really great. Not judo, and the other's the head and arm control that we discussed last time. In fact, last time we mentioned it's the only instructional where the instructor's wearing a Hawaiian shirt. So you got to check that one out just on principle. So
yeah, and that shirt's older than I am. That thing's from the early 70s. Pretty cool. And and Jeff's DVDs are great. Majid's are incredible. He's got some really, really cool stuff. Both of them have very unique styles, and their teaching styles very, very different. I will say this: deep half guard is game changing. Right as you get older, it's maybe something you really want to learn. I had to learn it through when I had my knee redone and I had ACL surgery. I just couldn't do anything. And the easiest thing for me to do is hang on to someone's leg because it was the least amount of stress on my injury for the year that I was out. And all the stuff from the years of being around Jeff all kind of clicked. For being incapable of doing regular movement, I was able to adapt to Jeff's teachings. I recommend his deep half guard to all my students, to everybody, because it'll change your game and it'll just kind of open your eyes to being able to give up stuff to give your back, like how to get out of bad situations and counter it and be in a better spot. So, if you can support all of our work, I'd appreciate it. I know those guys are really super thankful for having an outlet to be able to teach and make money off of it aside from their school. And it helps their living situation. So, and not just us, but everybody that has stuff on Fanatics. Support the brand, support all these. There's such great teachers out there. I don't necessarily own everyone, but I take stuff from everybody, right? If you did jiu-jitsu in the early 2000s, all we had was some random shit that was on YouTube and some books that are missing sequences and stuff. And the books are still really good too. All those Victory Press books that came out back in the day that Kid Peligro did the entry writing to they're Bibles of grappling. And there's information in there that will, stand the test of time. What a great time to be a grappler. You can learn from all kinds of people at once. So
if you guys are interested, all these instructionals are available right now at bjjfanatics.com. So definitely go check them out. Well, folks, unfortunately, we're fresh out of time. Joel, it was always a pleasure to get to hang out and talk with you, man. I really appreciate your time. You're always welcome back anytime you'd like to come back on the show.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. For anyone out there that wants to keep up with Joel, it's really easy to do so. He's most active on Instagram. It's Joel Jitsu. Very easy to find. So follow him there. He's got a YouTube channel coming out in the future. Him and Majid Hage might be putting out a YouTube channel. So make sure you guys are keeping your eyes peeled there. And then guys, if you're ever traveling through Del Mar, California, Southern California, drop into Surf Fight. It's one of the best training destinations in the world. So drop in there. Very close to the water too. So you can definitely have a cool time before and after training. And then guys, if you can't make it to Del Mar for whatever reason, you can learn from Joel anywhere in the world here at bjjfanatics.com. He's got 2 instructionals with us. The one we discussed in depth today is called Not Judo. It's a great place to start if you want to get better at fighting off your feet. It's available right now at bjjfanatics.com. And that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. I really appreciate you tuning in. Please stay tuned for the next episode of the BJJ Fanatics podcast.